hello. Today we're going to be convincing me and you, I guess, to watch Teen Titans. So this conversation is going to be just us talking about like what is the show Teen Titans? 2003, that's how most people know it, and why you should watch it, why someone would maybe be interested in it if they've never once seen the show. So I haven't really seen the show, but I've seen like one episode. So joining us today is Matt Cole, who is not only a longtime Teen Titans 2003 fan, big nostalgic show for him, but he's also my husband. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Gracie, what's up?
Matt has his own podcast. It's called Matt and Kyle, and he also has his own YouTube channel, Matt Cole Sports. But today, we're not really talking about either of those things. We're diverging from that to talk about a specific show that he loves. So to start us off, I'm just gonna like give the channel a really brief context for Teen Titans, and then Matt, I'll have you kind of explain a little bit more about the show since you've seen it a lot more. So Teen Titans 2003, its entire reign of the show was on Cartoon Network, so that's where a lot of people might have seen it. Actually, initially, it was also on WB Kids. So for the people who have seen some of my other videos, the WB, that's like what Dawson's Creek was on. So I guess they had a kids channel. Again, this is kind of around that same time where the WB is like kind of a teen channel, and they're like trying out like what does a younger audience channel look like. But Cartoon Network, I feel like, is the most like when you think of a cartoon, you're like, okay, it was probably on that. So that was the case with Teen Titans. Teen Titans was so popular as a show that even though they only planned for 4 seasons, they actually ended up adding on a 5th. There's also movies and things like that. Matt, I think you were watching maybe one of the movies or one of those like offshoots just to like prepare. So yeah, that's a little bit about this show. Its creator is Glenn Murakami. Yeah, that's what I got. Tell me more, Matt. Why Teen Titans?
Yeah, thanks for the intro. So I grew up watching Teen Titans. So I actually started with the movie. I got it from my local library. It was just a movie that I saw when we kind of went weekly, my family and I, to get books, and there was also a DVD section. And I saw the Teen Titans movie and figured, hey, why not check it out? It's free. Go support your local library. And loved the movie. And then when I went back, I think I was like 9 or 10, I saw that there was more Teen Titans stuff. Things are organized alphabetically, at least at that library. And I went to the T section and saw more Teen Titans stuff, which was funny because the Teen Titans movie comes after the rest of the show, like chronologically. But then I kind of started working my way through the rest of the Teen Titans, and it was kind of one of the shows I grew up watching. But the thing that's different about it for me is that I came back to it as a teenager, and then I came back to it now as an adult, and I think it has really lived up to the longevity. It has aged well. I can still find things as an adult that I find interesting and compelling, and also nostalgic. Like there's other shows that I watched back then when I was a kid that, I'll see like a poster or something of it, and I'm like, that has some nostalgia for me for sure. But Teen Titans just has like a little more meat on the bones, and that is why I still watch it. That's why I bought the Blu-ray. That's why I still think about it. So yeah, it's a really cool show. It has a really good blend of like the craft, and the animation is really interesting and really exciting, especially for like a Western show that came out in the early 2000s. It's got a lot of interesting stuff going on. And also the stories are really interesting. It's obviously limited. I mean, I'm not going to say that these are epic stories. They're told in 20-minute chunks of episodes. Like they're not long, but they are compelling, and they deal with serious stuff. It's still a teen show, so it doesn't go too crazy mature, but enough that an adult can find something interesting. And then, of course, it's still like zany Cartoon Network type show, so it's got a lot of fun things to it. But that's kind of my introduction experience with Teen Titans.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you can see right here on the shelf, this is Matt's Teen Titans Blu-ray that I stole from, because it, fits into my nostalgia TV. So it's staying right there. Yeah, I like those descriptions. That was going to be one of my first questions. So I watched episode one. We'll talk about episode one because it's a little quirky in terms of a pilot episode of a show. My question was like, yeah, is it for teens? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it for kids? Is it for teens? Is it for adults?
I think it's definitely for teens, younger teens, probably is there when they were, pitching the show to TV executives. That was probably the ideal demographic that they were coming up with was younger teens. The name of the show is Teen Titans. The characters in the show are teens. And they definitely deal with like teen issues. Like, you think of the classic, like coming of age stuff. They're dealing with feeling comfortable in their own skin. They're fitting in, budding romances. There's even an episode where one of the characters gets like a zit. Like it's like stuff like this that's like teen stuff. They definitely lean into that, but we still have the fun comic book stuff that is a little bit timeless, whether you like it or not, where there's just like good guys and bad guys. And so I definitely think it's for a young teen, but there's enough there that it doesn't feel, kiddish, or anything like that. Like there are some shows that are, maybe more exclusively a kid's show, that like, a Bob the Builder or something like that. This is still definitely like a kid's show in presentation and ethos, but it's got a little more to it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I forgot to mention that it's based on the DC comic. So that's really fun because there's so much that it draws from that I think is from that original source material. I feel like sometimes that gives a show more longevity because there might have been people that were drawn to it because of, the comic. So maybe it's bringing in that wider audience of different age ranges, whereas like a show that was just cooked up for the Disney Channel or something may not have like that kind of staying power. So I think that's a really cool factor. The other thing you brought up, which, well, it might come back in our conversation. It might just be like a video that I want to make for a different time. You mentioned that your first time watching this show was getting it through the library. I feel like such a big part of nostalgia TV is one, you had to like wait for it. Like weekly, you'd either get a new video at the library or it would come on, cable television at that certain, standard time. And there's something maybe that like it links the shows that we're nostalgic with having to kind of routinely like wait for them, or you know what I mean? Like I'm thinking about somebody the shows that you like binge watch. Maybe that doesn't have the same effect. I don't know. Do you think there's like something to that?
I think definitely, absolutely. That's part of why I think the TV model took off and was so successful for so long, and also part of I think why we're a little bit going back to that now, and people, it's exciting to have a show that you're waiting for. It's exciting if it's like a big show like a White Lotus or a Severance that's in the zeitgeist that everybody's talking about. That's really exciting. Or even if it's purely just the idea of waiting for it and getting excited each week, like that's really cool. I believe these episodes aired like pretty quickly, and then of course the Cartoon Network model was they did just like a ton of reruns, so this show was playing for a long time, and that's part of why it got so popular that they had to extend it from 4 to 5 seasons, and that's part of why it kind of became ingrained in the consciousness of a lot of people who grew up like 2000s babies on, or even a little bit older than that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's a model that has aged well, which is waiting for something and having it be serialized, and then having some arcs that go throughout the whole season where one episode could be like a one-off thing and you're excited about that, but also the next episode could be a continuation of an arc that started at the start of the season that you were excited to see like the follow-up to. And so yeah, definitely think that's a part of it.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about reruns because I'm thinking like, oh, streaming, it's so different now because we can just go and access anything. But in a way, streaming is kind of just like an upgraded reruns. And like so many shows are like that. Like I even think about the Brady Bunch, which I love. So many people did not watch it in real time, but just watched the reruns that aired, literally years later. And so I'm sure that's the case for cartoons or a lot of shows, maybe especially shows that are a little bit more formulaic because you can kind of just pop in and understand any episode. But yeah, it kind of like makes it stay with you a little bit longer than just if you were to see it in real time and then move on to the next. So I like that as like an additional layer. Okay, one of my questions. So I have a bad habit of just like comparing things. Like this, like I have to put it in frame of reference. And so people who love Teen Titans might be like, this is a bad comparison. I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But The really only cartoon show that I like is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm definitely gonna make, videos about that in the future. That is just a show that I love so much. I'm not a cartoon person, so a big part of this video, Matt, is that I kind of want you to convince me why I would like Teen Titans, or why someone who loves nostalgia TV but isn't maybe quite connected to like the animated world or the superhero world, like why they would still love the show. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But my question is, um, what are some similarities that you could maybe point out between Avatar: The Last Airbender? I noticed the animation is slightly similar. Am I like crazy for thinking that, or what?
You're absolutely not crazy. It's absolutely. I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is, at least of the very popular shows that we still think of in 2025, probably the closest show to Teen Titans that I could compare it to. I know that's high praise. Avatar is well acclaimed, and for good reason. But there's a lot of similarities. The So Teen Titans, I do believe, came out first. And they were inspired by similar things. They were inspired by Japanese anime. You can, I mean, very much see this in the visual style. They're doing things with animation that you can kind of only do with animation. There's a lot of like visual gags. There's a lot of interesting ways to show emotion, like a little, I don't know exactly what the word is, but like a bubble that pops up on their heads when they're mad, or something like that.
Hmm.
Very stylized action scenes is another thing where there could be like moving backgrounds, or something like that. And both Teen Titans and Avatar: The Last Airbender use those visual stylings, and I think that makes them really distinct. And for someone who likes Avatar and that visual style, you're going to feel right at home watching Teen Titans. It feels really, really similar, but going a layer deeper from just like the visuals, which is the most obvious similarity. You have some similarities in the story structure. Avatar is a little bit more story based than Teen Titans is. Avatar, for the 3 seasons of it, there is a overarching story for each season, and even for the whole show. Teen Titans, it's not as much the case. Each season has its own arc that is a little bit self-contained. There are slight things that carry over. Obviously, the characters do, but there are slight story things that carry over. But within each season, there is an arc, and then most of the episodes are kind of just like self-contained. Excuse me. So a little bit of a difference there, but where the similarities start to come in is that these are young characters who are, have powers. Like in Avatar, it is the bending. In Teen Titans, it is their superpowers, and they are dealing with that. They're dealing with their friendships with each other and relationships, and then they're dealing with, there is some sort of antagonist. So a lot of those are just like tropes, the things you fall in, like the reasons you love Aang, and how he reacts to the plot elements in Avatar. Like there's things you're gonna find in Teen Titans that are just like that. Like, yeah. So I think it's a really good comparison. And then the last, I think, piece here is the voice acting. Avatar has really great kind of stylized voice acting. Oftentimes you have someone doing a character and they have like a very distinct voice for that character. And even if the animation is not on the screen, you could still tell who that character is. And they're leaning a lot into that. Definitely also the same with Teen Titans. So if that kind of thing doesn't, turn you off, and you're like, oh, this is weird that there's these crazy visual styles and these voice actors that are really going for it. If you like that kind of thing, you're also going to find that in Teen Titans. I think it's a very fair comparison.
Okay, cool. No, that's great to know. I hadn't thought about the voice acting side of it. I do feel like that's a really distinct part of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it would make sense that, I don't know, if marketed towards kids, like you're gonna want those really distinct, memorable characters and their sounds. So I don't know. That's just something that I hadn't even thought of. That might be why I love it. I guess my next question is about the world building. Because when I was thinking about why I love Avatar, you're right. It's super narrative. I do really love that element of it. I think it like elevates the show maybe a little bit beyond just like a cartoon where every week is like super episodic or like super different. But I think the thing I love most about Avatar is it has this world that feels really real. Obviously, they're drawing on a lot of like Eastern elements that, maybe are a little familiar because like they were actually part of history. But I mean, I think a lot of it is not that. It is just like creating its own unique little world that you feel like you're a part of. And that you could like go and visit. So talk to me a little bit about the world of Teen Titans. I watched episode 1 and I know they mentioned Gotham City, so I'm like, okay, that's Batman. But other than that, like what is the world of Teen Titans?
Yes. So one of the things I think that's actually really helpful for Teen Titans and recommending it to people is that it's actually not that connected to the DC universe or comic book universe at large. There are a few passing mentions to things that if you're a comic book person, there'll be fun references to catch. References to Robin's secret identity and like which Robin it specifically is. There's a few references to, like you said, Gotham, like elements like that. But really, it's self-contained. So the Teen Titans are based in, I believe it's called Jump City, and it's a city that they, protect from the villains, and no other superheroes are there. We run into, throughout the series, we run into like a few, kind of guest star superheroes, but none of them are like, they're Teen Titans, superheroes. They are not like Batman or Superman. The creator actually, really interestingly, said that he didn't ever want to include Batman because he felt that if the minute you include Batman, then it starts to blow up the world a ton, and people can start comparing it to all the other Batman things that are out there, whether it's the movies or the Batman animated TV show. Like, Batman is of course a very substantial character in the comic book world, and so the minute you kind of pull that in, it brings in so much. Hey, is the Joker going to come around? Are we going to do a guest episode in Gotham? Like, there's a lot there, and that's just one character. That DC, obviously, there's a ton, and the long story short is they just have the Teen Titans and any related Teen Titans villains and that kind of thing. So you don't really need a ton of background in order to watch the Teen Titans. You don't. There's not really a barrier to entry that there might be, like, if you want to watch like the most recent Marvel movie where it's like, oh my gosh, there's this multiverse and 5 different versions of these characters, and I feel like I need to go watch 20 movies of homework before I do this. Like, you can just jump in really anywhere with the Teen Titans, and they use the visual language to communicate enough about the important relationships you need to know, and that's about it. So I think that's really a really valuable thing. It's not heavy on the superhero world. Like, obviously, all these people have powers, and they are superheroes, and they're fighting villains, and there's some of the tropes of like the cheesy, corny stuff that just comes with the nature of being a superhero story. But I wouldn't say it leans too crazy hard into that. Like, if you're okay with someone bending an avatar, like if that's a story element that you're okay with and doesn't bother you, then you're going to be right at home in Teen Titans.
Okay, that's great. No, that's really helpful. Okay, so that makes sense about the world. I do kind of get that, why the world would be almost like better off as its separate thing. It gives the creator more creativity than if you were connected to something that already exists. So I kind of get the trade-off there. All right, so it's its own unique Jump City. Talk to me a little bit about the characters and the plot. Like, why would I want to like you return back to the show, not just, as a little kid, like, oh, I love superheroes, if that was even new. You returned back to it as a teen, as an adult. What were some of the fun things that made you return back?
Yeah, so we got our 5 main characters that are the Teen Titans. You have Robin, who's the leader of the group, and that is Batman's Robin, but again, this is Robin separate from Batman, really. We have Raven, Starfire, Cyborg, and Beast Boy are the other 4 main characters, and they're villains. I think I'll kind of go through some of the elements that appeal about each one. But another kind of just big picture thing here is they're Teen Titans comic books. It's not like they were created for this TV show, and they do draw from it. It is a source element for the TV show, but it's not too much. You don't feel like, oh, I need to go read this comic book to understand what's going on here. Like, they're drawing from it, but it is pretty still self-contained. If you really want to, you can go and find fun references. But so what we get is, one, a really good balance of all these 5 characters. I think it's pretty hard as a show to have 5 main characters, just like period, and have none of them elevate or upstage each other. And Teen Titans does a pretty good job at like focusing enough episodes in on each character. I like maybe feel like a silly comparison, but I think Friends is pretty good at that too. Like, you have episodes that the A plot is about Joey, and sure, that's an episode where you can focus on that and learn a little bit about him. Then the next episode might be about Chandler, or the next episode might be about Rachel. Like, we kind of get that same dynamic with the Teen Titans. We even get that in the season-long arcs. Each season has an arc that is focused on one of the characters, so you can really dive a little bit deeper into each one and learn kind of what makes them tick and what's unique about them. So kind of alluded to this earlier, but they have the funny dynamics, the humor between each other that like it's par for the course. It's again, we got to remember this is still a show made for young teens. Like there is humor about eating each other's food or playing video games or whatever, but there's stuff there that you can go a little bit deeper on. So Beast Boy, he's the youngest, or at least seemingly the youngest member of the group, and he deals a lot with like fitting in and standing up for himself and not feeling like he is the, just like the weakest. He's definitely like the silliest, but and they play him for laughs the most, but he also doesn't want to just be taken as the silly one. Like he wants to be a real part of the group, and especially he has a big arc in season 2, which I think we definitely want to go a little bit deeper on season 2 later, because it probably is the most significant arc of any of the shows, but he's got a big one there that really matures his character. He kind of goes through something tough that makes him, gives him some layers. Robin has a very interesting character conflict that is not present in a lot of other shows, which is like, he's really concerned with not being obsessed and not being perfect. You don't get this told to you directly, but you kind of feel that it's like, he's spent most of his life as Batman's apprentice, and now he's leading his own team. And so he's obsessed with being like the perfect leader. And he is, if there's ever a villain that gets away, he's like obsessed with that. And that becomes a big thing. And him not being obsessed and having to, divest himself away from some of that is a big thing. Raven is she's basically a witch, and her dad is a demon, and she was created as she's like the most powerful one, and she was created more or less to be part of destroying the world. And so she's dealing with like really big ideas of like, am I the reason the world is going to die in season 4, basically? And then she has to kind of go and conquer her dad. So that's a really kind of like big picture arc that she also becomes internal. Starfire is the alien of the group, and I do mean that literally. She is from another planet. So she's dealing with a lot of questions about like, do I belong on this earth? And what makes her feel like she belongs is her friends, the rest of the group. And then if there's ever conflict within the group, she starts to feel like, why am I even here? She has to deal with her sister upstaging her, and then her sister turns out to be evil, and that's a whole thing. And she also has to deal with some racism. There's this one episode of this guy who calls her a slur that is only a slur on her alien planet. And it's really interesting because that guy is also, the rest of the team like loves him. Like he's charismatic and he's fun, but he calls her a slur. And they don't know it's a slur, but she knows it's a slur. And so that's kind of an interesting, they kind of hashed that out in one episode. And then the last one, and honestly, this was the character I liked the most as a kid, and honestly probably would say I still do now, is Cyborg. He is a former athlete, half man, half robot. And he deals a lot with the limitations of his robot self. He one of his kind of common things that comes up with is that when he was an athlete and when he was 100% human, he could push himself. He felt like he was only constrained by his mental and not by his physical, and that he could like push himself a little bit harder if he wanted to. And now that he's a robot, it's like if he runs out of battery or something, he's like out of commission. Or if he runs out of power that he can give to something, like he won't be able to help anymore. And that really bothers him a lot of times. And he also just deals with the fact that he is a robot and he's not a human anymore, like that, or he's not fully human anymore. And that's kind of a dynamic there. So, I didn't really go into any specific episodes there, but those I think are some of the high level themes that each of the characters gets to hit on in kind of their respective arcs. That a lot of mature themes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I had no idea. I'm thinking about that and I'm like, well, yeah, that's certainly, like, I wouldn't say rivals as in like in opposition, but like feels like comparative to in Avatar: Last Airbender, and Uncle Iroh has like giving all these like Eastern philosophy, nuggets, and you're like, wow, okay, like someone could actually get something from that. That feels really comparable now. I had no idea they tackled topics like that, and I think that is really cool, especially from that teenage perspective, where it's like they're probably able to present it in a way that's simple enough that everyone can understand it, but someone who's like on the older end could actually relate that back to real life or see where there's like an actual application there. So I think that's really lovely.
Yeah,
I didn't
and
realize all that.
absolutely. And I think that's the benefit of some of these shows for younger audiences that have more mature themes is you can start to present those to younger people, and they can start, like, this can be part of them growing up to watch other shows that have those themes, and they can be ready for it, or that they can start to just engage with these themes from a young age. And I think that's really valuable.
Absolutely. I also noticed when I was doing my research the way that each of the 5 seasons sort of ties in with a different character's overarching narrative. I think that's really cool. I agree with you on it's hard to have 5 main characters. And I think that was really a cool way to do it, because episode to episode, I'm sure if you broke down the season, there might be a similar amount of coverage for each of the characters. But the fact that one of them has to kind of go through something very internal, and the friends have to all support that character, and that is like a each season by season idea. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I love that.
Yeah, one thing that you actually might find interesting as a writer and lover of the books of books,
Of the books.
lover
Yeah.
of the books,
Mhm.
is, and part of this is the Japanese inspired storytelling, but we do get a good amount of interiority, both from just like straight up ways they're like talking to themselves or talking to no one, like monologuing almost, or even it can just be like visual interiority where someone will use some sort of visual gag to show someone reacting to something and no one else noticing that. And it's a little bit it's like ways you can only use animation to show some of these things. They like an example, like they would shine a light on one of the characters reacting to something, and it's like, obviously if this was real life, everyone would notice this like light shining on Cyborg, but because it's animation, we can just like suspend our disbelief. They show the interiority really well in some of these instances that really adds to the storytelling.
No, that is a really unique thing about animation, which has made me come around to it definitely more than I used to, because like the facial expressions and all those things are just so like, yeah, they're kind of goofy and silly, but you're right, like it's a real narrative tool, which I'm like, I don't know, not many other types of shows would even use that. So that's pretty fun. I just wanted to point out behind you. Will you point out to the viewers of Teen Titans Tower? Did you intentionally put it in like the center frame or no?
Yeah, it is right there above my
Okay.
this shoulder, my left shoulder.
Perfect.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure Teen Titans were included in my background of all the
Perfect.
things I love.
Beautiful. Nice, subtle choice.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, so what are just a couple, like, if you just think of like episodes that you love, it could either be like a specific plot from one episode or like an arc that you loved. What would just be something fun that you would like tell me or someone about who is interested in watching?
Yeah, so I would say there's 3 episodes that I would really highlight, depending on what I think the person that I was trying to convince would want. One action based, one that's more funny and just like classic cartoon comedy, and one that is a much more kind of mature. That's the season 2 thing I was talking about. So I'll do that one last. The action one that is a really good time. It's called Revved Up. I think it's in season 5, one of the last episodes of season 5, I believe. And it is some villain steals Robin's briefcase. Briefcase is the wrong word. It's a case. And it has one of Robin's most prized possessions in there, and they do not tell the audience what it is. And he steals the case, and he basically says, you can have it back if you could beat me in a road race. And they do this road race across the desert. A bunch of the villains of the show up just to kind of mess with the Teen Titans while they're doing this. And again, it's animation, and it's very stylized, so you don't really know why the villains show up or like who called them or anything like that, but that's not what you're concerned about. It's just a good self-contained 20 minutes of them driving across the desert and going through these like crazy road race sequences, like cars flipping over each other, and there's like a rolling pit stop that keeps trying to dismantle one of the cars. Like it's a whole thing. And at the end, they do get the briefcase back, and then they do not tell the viewer still what it is. So there's a lot of speculation in the Teen Titans community about what is in that briefcase. So feel free to also speculate if you'd like.
My gosh, yeah.
So that's the action one. There's a really funny episode in season 1 that I've told people about before, just to kind of introduce the zaniness of the show, called, well, I don't know if it's called Mad Mod. It might be called Mad Mod, but he's the main villain of the show, and he is literally just a British guy who has these like hypno screens, and he lives in this. He kidnaps all the Teen Titans to his lair, and he doesn't really have much motivation other than he wants to kidnap the Teen Titans, and they kind of go into this like madhouse situation where they're like going in all these rooms, and each one is different than the last, and in some it looks like they're standing upside down, and they're constantly trying to be hypnotized, and they go very hard on the British gags. Like it is like this guy is making references to the Who and the Beatles, and I mean it is British, and I just think it's hilarious that they made basically like the Joker an old British guy. I wonder if that was well received in Great Britain, but some good gags in that episode. And I remember when I was a kid, there's this one gag specifically where Beast Boy keeps getting hypnotized, and I mean, when I was 10, I think that was the funniest thing in the entire world. Like I was crying of laughter. So that's a good one. And then the main arc in season 2, I think is pretty serious, and I'd say has the most longevity of all the arcs in the show. Part of that is because it is one of the few arcs of the Teen Titans show that is directly based on a comic book arc, or an arc from the comic books. So it's called the Judas Contract, and the arc is about a 6th member of the team named Tara. Tara, they basically meet Tara. I don't exactly remember how, but her power is she can manipulate the earth and rock, like basically Toph from Avatar. She is an earthbender, essentially. She is this great addition to the team, but she's also clearly very insecure and unsure about herself and even her powers. Like she was kind of a loner before because she had these powers, and kind of like the X-Men thing where the mutants feel very outcast from the rest of society. And she also has trouble like controlling her powers. So the Teen Titans meet up with her, and being the welcoming group that they are, she becomes like the unofficial 6th member. And then the main villain of the show, his name is Slade, basically gets in her head and starts like talking to her. Not gets in her head literally, he's not inside her head, but he starts talking to her and kind of telling her that like he knows all her insecurities. He starts telling her insecurities, and she starts believing them. Like, they don't want me. They think I'm dangerous. They are just lying to me. They don't trust me. Like, he tells her all the things that she does not want to hear, even though she's already thinking them. And honestly, even though he's telling it to a teenage girl with superpowers, like I'm sure that a lot of that will resonate for people who have heard those kind of things in their own brain. Maybe not to the same severity, and maybe they haven't heard you can't control your superpowers, but a lot of the more human stuff. There's some kind of back and forth. She runs away for a little bit, comes back, and her and Beast Boy kind of strike up a little bit of a romance. They spend an entire episode essentially them on a date at an abandoned amusement park, her and Beast Boy, and they're kind of using their powers to like enjoy the amusement park. And it's really sweet. The voice acting is amazing for Tara. Like you really believe her as this kind of troubled but earnest young woman. And then while Beast Boy and Tara are out, Slade sends all his minions to attack the Teen Titans Tower, the other 4. And then it turns out that Tara has basically betrayed the Teen Titans and has been feeding information to Slade. So that ignites this whole, I say ignite, not ironically, because it ignites this whole battle, and they ultimately end up like kind of inside this like volcano, which is where Slade has been hiding out. there's this whole battle, and they are constantly dealing with the fact that Terra has like betrayed them and given away all their secrets to Slade. But Beast Boy still very much believes her. He believes she's still got, heart. And then at some point they kind of decide like we have to let her go. She is a villain now, and they kind of fully pick sides, and that makes Terra really upset. And slowly but surely you start to realize like Terra's powers are way more powerful than she even realizes. Like she's starting to control this entire volcano. And at the end, it makes it really clear that Slade was just using Terra as a pawn in order to get information to the Teen Titans, and that makes her really mad, and she feels betrayed by Slade. And so then she kills Slade. She submerges him into the lava, and it was so much power submerging him into the lava that the volcano basically starts erupting. And in order to stop it, she has to like cover the volcano with rock, and in doing so, it collapses on her. And so
Oh my gosh.
she dies and is turned into stone. And they basically take her statue and put it into somewhere in the city, and put a memorial there. And that's just kind of like, it kind of hangs over the rest of the show of like there's this sixth member of the team who was very troubled, and they took her in, and then it ended tragically. And of course, Beast Boy is obviously the most affected by this. Like I said, this is an adaptation of the comic, and the comic I think is a lot more serious. Terra is like presented as someone without much redemptive qualities. Like she basically is like, she's like the mastermind of it all. She like figures out she wants to kill the Teen Titans, and then she weasels her way into the group, and then her and Slade have some kind of weird sexual relationship. Like the comic is like a lot more serious. So I think this was like a very appropriate adaptation of the story, and we get a lot more redemptive arc for Terra, and that I think is really compelling, because we ultimately get how that affects Beast Boy. And anyway, I digress. I'd say those are the 3 episodes that I would recommend for different reasons.
Okay. No, I like that. I like that you came up with like such a different variety, because I could see why different episodes would appeal to different people, but also the fact that all of those episodes are in this show kind of shows how like wide of a breadth it has anyways. The last point that you made about how they adapted something from the comics to be like a little bit more age appropriate for a cartoon is really interesting to me, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of ways, I think about this a lot because a lot of nostalgia TV is made for a little bit of a younger audience, kind of teens or whatever. And I feel like there's a way in which you could say that taking a more adult source material and making it for a younger audience, you lose something. But it's cool how in this way, just the way they happened to adapt it, you felt like, oh, it actually gained something. It showed more different perspectives than it maybe did even in the comics. So I don't know if that's something that can always be done, or if it's just Teen Titans had really good writers and were able to make the characters more nuanced. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, Glenn Murakami, I think, was very aware of what he was adapting, and what he wanted to take and what he wanted to leave out. I think it was pretty intentional of, the whole part of Terra being a part of the team and then betraying them and then kind of ultimately not betraying them was very compelling. And he wanted to take that, and he didn't want to take the part of Terra is pure evil and there's these other mature things. Like they were intentional about what they took and what they didn't. And I think they kept the parts of each character, like the essence of each character that made them, interesting, and also just like a fun superhero and not some like perfect superhero because they're teens, and left out, I think, probably the stuff that was good to leave out.
Yeah, when you say it like that, it almost makes me think of other adaptations that I love. Like Clueless comes to mind because people love Clueless. Clueless is a modern day retelling of Jane Austen's Emma. And a lot of times people don't like, modern retellings because it's literally like same thing you could say about a comic book. You could be like, well, it was great as it was. Everyone loved the comic, but why would you just change it and just make it like slightly different? Like people don't really tend to love that unless the changes you make are super intentional. So for Clueless, for example, the changes they made, they really leaned into like the 90s aesthetic, the 90s time period. They fully committed to that so that
She's got
people can kind
the
of
yellow blazer on.
Yeah, right?
And her,
like
for fashion, yeah.
I wish you could see it because on our wall, yeah, there's what I have the vinyl album of Clueless, which is so fun. It's just not in frame right now. It's right over there. But because they leaned into that so much, I think intentionally, like they made every single change kind of line up with one another. People love it. They see it as just like its own version of something, which I'm guessing Teen Titans 2003 is the same way. No one's confusing it for the comics, but because each choice was so like made for its audience or just whatever Glenn Murakami like had in his vision, it was so intentional that it seemed like a lot of people really do love it. So that's cool.
Yeah, one quote that I had just found, just kind of looking into this show, is basically that he wanted to. So in the comics, they are called the Teen Titans, but like frankly, they look like adults, and they don't go through as many. I think they are still teenagers. I have not read the comics, to be honest, but I've seen photos and read a few panels here and there, and they definitely look like adults. And oftentimes, superheroes are presented as an ideal or like a role model or something like that. There are a few superheroes that are not like that. Spider-Man comes to mind. There's the whole Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and I think a lot of kids, there's some Spider-Man animated shows that really make him feel like a teenager and someone that, if you're like a 12-year-old, that doesn't feel that far away. Whereas if you see, Superman, it's like, okay, that's a like perfect, impenetrable person. And obviously there's pros and cons to that too, but he was really intentional in kind of de-aging them down a little bit for the show. Like they're not super buff. They're not like suave. They're not, they have some of the similar problems that other teenagers have. And I think that's probably more interesting for, a kid who'd be watching Cartoon Network to see like Beast Boy or even I think especially for girls to see Starfire and Raven and be like, I could be like that. I could be like Starfire. I could be like Raven. And I think that's a huge part of why the show worked and why it appealed to more than just comic book kids. It appealed to the average kid and also, importantly, boys and girls who are watching it. So I think a lot of good decisions from Glenn Murakami on how the show was presented.
That is really true. Even like their voices are higher pitched. I noticed that. Like the guys and the girl, like they kind of have higher pitched voices than, adults would, which is maybe a fun cartoon voice acting thing, but I think it probably is also, again, an intentional choice, which is really cool. And I feel like kind of empowering as like creators because the fact that he, had that specific vision in mind, I feel like it ended up being more fruitful than if he had tried to just copy what someone else had already done. This also makes me think of something we've talked about a few times on this channel, which is that early 2000s, probably 90s to 2000s. Honestly, 2003 is not too far off from what I'm about to mention, which is the idea of teen shows was just coming to fruition. This was something that networks weren't quite sure what to do with because they knew little kids watched cartoons.
Sure.
They knew adults watched dramas, but teenagers went out and did stuff. They were like out living their lives. And so this was kind of the entryway in this time period into, oh, well, actually teenagers can watch and relate to shows and be a huge audience for us that we've never really tapped into. So the fact that he kind of rode that line of like kids, teenagers, adults probably really paid off because I think that was like some niche that hadn't really been filled. So I love that ended up being a part of the show that you really resonated with.
Totally. I think the last season, or excuse me, the last episode of the last season is a really interesting exploration of teens specifically. To your point about wanting to cater this like to be about teens. So last episode, it has kind of become controversial, but for how it ends, it's called Things Change is the name of the episode. And in the episode, season 5 has this really kind of big arc where they're teaming up with a lot of other superheroes in the Teen Titans world to fight. It's a villain called the Brotherhood of Evil, which is not subtle at all. And after that, they go back to Jump City and they're like, sheesh, that was a lot. And then, of course, some new villain pops up and he's wrecking havoc and the Titans have to go deal with it. Except Beast Boy does not. He is kind of on a different path because he saw a girl who looks exactly like Tara. And she's like a schoolgirl. She's in schoolgirl clothes. and he's basically following her. And the show doesn't ever really tell you if it's Tara. It does look like literally exactly like Tara. In the credits, she is credited as schoolgirl, and Tara, the Tara statue they do show us, is gone. Um, so there's a lot of question marks about, is she Tara, is she not? And obviously she's kind of the central figure to Beast Boy's full character arc, so that's why he is a little fixated on it. And at the end of the show, or at the end of the episode, he basically is like, he keeps being like, do you remember this? Like, do you remember when we went to this amusement park? Do you remember when XYZ? And she keeps saying like, no, I don't. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you following me? And at the end, she just like runs away from him. And I think goes to, like, I think she said she's like late for a math test or something like that. So it doesn't really tell us whether it is Tara or not. But they talk about how one of the key things about going from being a teenager to an adult is recognizing that things do change and that you kind of have to be okay with that. Like, you leave high school and your high school days are over, and sometimes you move on from those high school friends and you go into college or a job, and things change, like to the title of the episode. And they really wanted to capture that. Some people would say they captured it too much because they were so invested in the Tara storyline that they didn't want it used for this thematic storytelling. Then they're like, this is too much. Now we feel like it's a cliffhanger. But they really, they really wanted to capture the idea of going from a teenager to an adult is a sweet thing in a lot of ways. And you gain independence and you gain, autonomy. You can make your own decisions, but that also comes with you're saying goodbye to some of the things that helped you grow up when you were a teenager. And Tara was part of Beast Boy's story of growing up, and now he has to say goodbye to her and realize that in the show's canon, at least, Tara's not around anymore, and whether she's dead or not is, that's the question mark. But I think it was really interesting that they wanted to hinge on that, and they drove that home so clearly, because I remember that from being a teenager, like having to kind of realize that, and they capture that lightning in a bottle really well.
Yeah, no, and that also is something that continues on as an adult. Like, you constantly have to be okay with like seasons ending and new ones starting. And so that almost feels like so adult, but I guess you're starting that process of learning how to be an adult as a teenager. So it's like a nice
Exactly.
bridge. I think that was really cool. As someone who wasn't, I guess, emotionally invested in that story, at least not yet, I really like that. I think that's really cool that they did that. And it keeps people talking, which is so fun because, the show is over and clearly people still care so much about it. So I don't know. I'm honestly a lot more convinced even than I thought I would be. I had no idea that the show had so many like deeper themes to it. I think that's like so unique, and wow, I'm really glad we talked about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to present it as too serious. It is still a Cartoon Network show, and there's still the average episode. I think if you just clicked like if you just clicked like literally a random episode, it would probably be some quirky, they have to go fight this storybook villain, and there's some crazy comedy and action, and you'd be like, okay, well, I thought Matt told me this was this really serious story. And it's like it's not fully presented like that, but they give you enough that they do really explore a lot of mature stuff, and I think they really struck a perfect balance for the young teenage audience of, hey, I think of Calvin and Hobbes as another really good example. It's a comic book a comic strip that ran for like 7 or so years, and half the maybe not even half, like 80% of the average Calvin and Hobbes strip is just like a comic book strip where Calvin and his pet tiger Hobbes like do something silly, and that's just what it is. But there are so many poignant moments that you can really latch onto, and Teen Titans also kind of has that balance. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that some of that resonated with you, even if it was just me describing it.
Oh my gosh, of course. I love hearing you describe things. Yeah, really that really that point is one that we've talked about recently in these videos, which is that what makes something nostalgic most of the time is like that atmosphere, is that feeling of the show. So that 80% that's not like those super deep nuggets of truth are a really big part of why we love something, because we love to just be in that atmosphere. It's safe, it's familiar, it's nice. So yeah, I wouldn't even discount that, I'm like, I'm sure part of the reason why the show is so lovely is because it's not just deep, but also has this just kind of fun world you can get lost in. which is kind of what TV is all about, at least to me. So
Mhm.
I would say it seems right up there in that nostalgia category.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you played the Teen Titans theme song for me at any point, I'm immediately transported back to the visual language of the show and the feel. And yeah, I don't, the word vibe is a little imperfect, but the vibe of the show and everything that goes into that, like,
Hmm.
it has got those nostalgic feelings, which is communicated through, audio and the video. Um, and then because it's nostalgia, we can revisit it and we can remember kind of the more mature things. So totally agree with you.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay, so when I was listening to the theme song, I'm guessing it changes, but like, what is it? Like, is it like a German lady singing or something? Like, it's kind of weird.
So it's not
Like,
it's not German. It
are you
is.
sure? It's not
Let me
Japanese.
let me. I'm gonna quickly double check. It is Japanese. I didn't want to get that
What?
wrong. So it
Well, but
is.
they're singing in English.
So there's like two versions of the song. There's like
Okay.
I think they have it recorded in Japanese, and then they also have it just in English. And yeah, I don't know exactly what German you're referring to, but it is. You may have heard the Japanese version,
I
and I don't know.
I knew I was gonna sound dumb saying that. Not like German, like the language, but like the way that the song is sung. It just, it was not what I was expecting. That's in the movie, like they have the characters sing it, right? That's kind of cute.
Yeah, they have a few kind of uh, gimmick gimmick versions of the song where one of the characters sings it, and
Okay.
it's kind of fun. But most of the time, it's I think it's Puffy Ami Yumi, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. That is like the
That's
Japanese
good.
pop group. I think it's a duo that sing it.
That's fun.
Yeah,
That is so cool. Yay. Aw, well, I'm so glad that we got to talk about this. Thanks for sharing your specific nostalgia love of Teen Titans with us today.
absolutely. No, it's good. I recommend everyone to at least give it a try, and give it a try more than maybe one episode. They're only 20 minutes, so give it 3 episodes. Give it an hour, and I think you'll probably enjoy it more than you expect to.
Yeah, and like we talked at the very beginning, the pilot, just drops you right into the world. There's
It
no
does.
intro, so maybe it'll help having watched slash listened to this first to give you some context. But yeah, what a
But
fun
also,
show.
I think part of it, like we talked about, you don't even need the context. It's not. They don't expect you to know Cyborg's backstory. Like if it's
Yeah,
important, they're going to tell you about it, and if it's not, you're watching five superheroes, and they'll tell you the important things you need to know, and visually communicate it. So
hmm
don't even be too intimidated by that.
that's true. Like a comic strip at heart. Like it's giving you
Hmm.
exactly what you need. Oh, that's
Exactly.
fun. Okay. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate your time. We love to have you.
All right. See you, Grace.
Come back soon.